The grand salon of Ashworth Hall blazed with candlelight and false cheer, packed with guests who had no idea a ghost lived among them. Corinna Ashworth pressed herself deeper into the servants' corridor, watching through the crack in the door as her stepmother held court. Lady Rosamond Ashworth was resplendent in burgundy silk, her voice carrying effortlessly as she regaled guests with tales of her daughter Lavinia's accomplishments. "She plays the pianoforte beautifully," Lady Rosamond was saying, one hand resting on Lavinia's shoulder. "And her watercolors have been praised by 3 instructors. We expect a most advantageous match this season." Lavinia smiled prettily, her golden curls catching the candlelight, every inch the perfect English rose. At 19, she was everything society demanded: beautiful, accomplished, and seemingly unaware of the sister who existed in the shadows. Not truly unaware, Corinna corrected herself. Lavinia knew. She simply didn't care. At 24, Corinna had perfected the art of invisibility within her own home. She touched her left shoulder absently, feeling through the fabric of her plain gray dress, the ridged terrain of scar tissue that extended from her shoulder blade to just below her collarbone. The scars that had saved Lavinia's life when the nursery caught fire 12 years ago. The scars that had ended Corinna's own life as surely as if the flames had consumed her entirely. "Such a pity about your other daughter," a woman's voice drifted through the crack. Corinna stiffened. "I had heard Lord Ashworth had 2 girls." The temperature in the salon dropped. Lady Rosamond's smile froze. "You must be thinking of someone else. Lavinia is my only child." "No, I'm quite certain." The unfamiliar voice persisted, threaded with steel. "Corinna, I believe? The elder daughter from Lord Ashworth's first marriage?" "Corinna is unwell," Lady Rosamond said brittlely. "The doctors recommended complete retirement from society." How tragic. And yet the servants I passed in the corridor seemed quite healthy. One in particular, gray dress, dark hair, intelligent eyes. She didn't look like a servant. She looked like a lady who'd been made into one. "Lady Honoria," Lady Rosamond said, and the name sent ice through Corinna's veins. Lady Honoria Vane, the Dowager Duchess of Thornhurst, one of the most powerful women in England. "I'm sure you're mistaken." "I'm rarely mistaken about anything." There was movement in the room. "Lord Ashworth, fetch your daughter?" "Your elder daughter. I should like to meet her." Silence fell. Then Corinna's father spoke weakly. "Of course, Your Grace." Corinna backed away from the door, but there was nowhere to go. The door swung open, and her father's face appeared. "Corinna, you're wanted in the salon." She followed him into the light. The gathered ladies stared, cataloging her plain dress, her unfashionable hairstyle, the pallor of someone who spent too much time indoors. So this is the hidden Ashworth. Lady Honoria Vane was perhaps 70, dressed in elegant gray silk that conveyed more authority than Lady Rosamond's burgundy. Her silver hair was elaborate, her posture ramrod straight, and her eyes, sharp blue, missing nothing, fixed on Corinna with unsettling intensity. "Your Grace," Corinna curtsied. "I apologize for my appearance." "Weren't expecting to be acknowledged as a member of your own family?" "No, I imagine you weren't." Lady Honoria circled her slowly. "Tell me about the fire. The one where she saved her sister's life? Where she pulled young Lavinia from a burning room at age 12, receiving these scars in the process?" Stunned silence. How could she possibly know? "I make it my business to know things," Lady Honoria said, reading her expression. "Particularly when those things involve injustice." She turned to Lady Rosamond. "You have hidden this girl away for 12 years. Made her a servant in her own home. And why? Because she bears the scars of courage? Your Grace. You cannot. I can do whatever I wish. I am the Dowager Duchess of Thornhurst, and your husband owes my family £3,000. that I have graciously declined to collect for 7 years. That debt comes due tomorrow, unless I decide otherwise." The color drained from Lady Rosamond's face. "What do you want?" "To make Lady Corinna a proposition. In private." Lady Honoria led her to Lord Ashworth's study and closed the door. "I have a grandson," she said without preamble. "Theron Vane, Duke of Thornhurst. 31 years old, brilliant, wealthy, and utterly impossible. He has rejected every eligible lady in London. I believe you could capture his attention where dozens of accomplished debutantes have failed." Corinna actually laughed. "Your Grace, that's absurd. I have no accomplishments, no social graces, no dowry. And the scars prove you have courage. The lack of polish proves you have authenticity. My grandson has spent years being hunted by women who see only his title. He is starving for something real." Lady Honoria's eyes gleamed. "You are the most real thing I've encountered in a decade. What exactly are you proposing? Come live in my household. Be presented to society as my companion and protégé. Attend events at my side." Lady Honoria withdrew a folded document. "And regardless of what happens with Theron, you will have this. It was a trust deed establishing £500 per year, held independently in her name. Consider it compensation for 12 years of injustice," Lady Honoria said. "But I do hope you'll give Theron a genuine chance." Corinna stared at the promise of a life she'd never dared imagine. £500, enough to live independently forever, enough to never depend on anyone's goodwill again. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" "Because I saw you carrying linens with the bearing of a queen. Because I recognized something in you that I had nearly forgotten existed." She held out her hand. "Come out of the shadows, Lady Corinna. Let me show you what you could be if someone believed in you." The voice that had run into fire to save a child answered, "Yes, I'll come with you." Thornhurst House dominated an entire block of Mayfair. Corinna stood before it the following morning, her single trunk beside her, wondering if she'd made a catastrophic mistake. The departure from Ashworth Hall had been swift and decisive. Lady Honoria had announced her intentions to the assembled guests, informed Lord Ashworth his debt would be forgiven in exchange for his elder daughter's release, and swept Corinna away before Lady Rosamond could object. The interior stole her breath. Marble floors, soaring ceilings, artwork that belonged in museums. She was led to the Blue Suite, rooms larger than the entire upper floor of Ashworth Hall. "Theron isn't here," Lady Honoria explained. "He's at Parliament. He won't return until evening, which gives us time to prepare you for dinner." The gowns arrived at noon. The modista took one look at Corinna's figure and began working. "Good shoulders," she murmured. "The scars will be partially visible in evening gowns, as her grace instructed. The right man will see them as distinction." By late afternoon, Corinna had been transformed, bathed, coiffed, dressed in deep sapphire silk that made her gray eyes luminous. The gown's neckline revealed the upper edge of her scarring, a pale map against her skin. "Exquisite," Lady Honoria declared. "Absolutely exquisite." Then a door slammed somewhere in the house, followed by heavy footsteps and an irritated voice. "Grandmother? I've just received the most absurd letter from Lord Ashworth, claiming you abducted his daughter. Please tell me this is some elaborate jest." "That would be Theron," Lady Honoria said mildly. "He does hate surprises." The door burst open. Theron Vane was tall and lean, with dark hair and gray-green eyes currently blazing with irritation. He stopped dead when he saw Corinna. "Who the hell are you?" "Language, Theron. This is Lady Corinna Ashworth, the hidden daughter kept in servitude for 12 years because her stepmother found her inconvenient. She'll be staying for the season." Theron stared. "Have you lost your mind?" "Quite the opposite. Grandmother, you cannot simply collect people." "Standing right here," Corinna said quietly. capable of hearing everything you say. His eyes snapped to her. I beg your pardon. You're discussing me as if I'm furniture. I've spent 12 years being talked about rather than 2. I had hoped things would be different here. Surprise flickered across his face. Then, unexpectedly, respect. You have a temper. I have opinions, which my family found equally objectionable. Lady Honoria smiled with undisguised satisfaction. You see? Someone with substance. I'm not going to court a woman simply because you've installed her in our household. I haven't asked you to. I've asked you to be civil to my guest. Theron stood still, wrestling with his composure. Lady Corinna, I apologize for my rudeness. I was surprised. His gaze found her scars. Those are from the fire, I assume. Yes. Your family hid you because of them. Yes. Fools. The single word caught her off guard. Scars from saving a child's life are nothing shameful. They should have celebrated you, not buried you. He turned to leave. We'll have dinner together this evening. 7 o'clock. If we're sharing a household, we should probably have at least one proper conversation. After he left, Corinna released a shaky breath. He was arrogant, presumptuous, quick to anger. He had also looked at her scars and called her family fools for hiding her. This was going to be complicated. The weeks that followed established a pattern Corinna found both pleasant and unsettling. Breakfasts were companionable. They discussed papers and planned social calendars. Afternoons found them in separate pursuits. Evenings varied between social obligations and quiet hours in the library, where they'd sit reading, but somehow still together. You're not what I expected, Theron said one evening, 3 weeks into her residence. Most women confronted by a duke's displeasure would be apologizing profusely by now. I'm not most women, and I didn't do anything wrong. Fair point. He regarded her with interest. Tell me about yourself, beyond the circumstances that brought you here. I enjoy reading. Philosophy mostly, and history. I'm better at mathematics than is considered appropriate for a lady, and I strongly dislike gossip. Philosophy? His interest sharpened. What do you read? Currently Locke. Before that, Hume. I find epistemology fascinating. Most ladies consider philosophy tedious. Most gentlemen consider ladies tedious, so perhaps we're even. He laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his face entirely. Touché. His eyes met hers. You know you're genuinely intelligent? Not just intelligent for a woman? The casual compliment sent warmth through her. That's quite a statement from someone who graduated first in his class. It's also true. Anyone who's dismissed you as merely decorative is an idiot. Lady Honoria cleared her throat. Well, this is enlightening. They both seemed to realize they'd been staring at each other. I should return to work, Theron said abruptly. We're attending Lady Pemberton's ball next week, your official introduction to society. After he left, Corinna felt her heart beating too quickly. Against all reason, she was beginning to like him. And that was absolutely the last thing she needed. The Marchioness of Pemberton's spring ball was Corinna's official introduction to society. She wore emerald silk, the neckline deliberately revealing the upper edge of her scarring. Her hair was threaded with tiny emeralds that caught the light. Remember, Lady Honoria murmured as they arrived. You're not hiding. You're not apologizing. They were announced at the entrance, and every eye turned toward her. Whispers started immediately. The hidden daughter. Scars from a fire. Living with the Duke now. Then Theron appeared at the bottom of the stairs. Lady Corinna, he offered his arm. May I have the honor? She took it, and the whispers shifted. The Duke of Thornhurst was publicly claiming her as his companion. You're trembling, he murmured. I'm nervous. You don't look it. You look stunning. He remained at her side throughout, deflecting pointed questions, responding to veiled insults with cutting courtesy. When the orchestra struck up a waltz, he extended his hand. "Dance with me." I never properly learned. I'll lead. Besides, if we dance, no one can approach us with questions. She took his hand. The sensation of being in his arms was overwhelming. She could feel his warmth, smell his cologne, and see the individual flecks of green in his gray eyes. "Eyes on me," he said softly. "Don't think about the room." She let him guide her through the steps, and somewhere in the middle of the waltz, the anxiety faded. There was only the music, the movement, and Theron's eyes holding hers. "You're a natural," he murmured. The music ended. They stepped apart. "Lady Corinna." Lavinia stood at the edge of the floor, staring with theatrical surprise. "It is you. I had no idea you were in London." "Attending a ball," Corinna said flatly. "Same as you." "But you're not. I mean, you don't." Lavinia's gaze flickered to the scarring. "Lady Lavinia." Theron's voice cut through. "I don't believe we've been introduced." Lavinia's manner shifted to practiced charm. "Your Grace, I'm Lavinia Ashworth, Corinna's sister." "I've heard very little about you. Lady Corinna rarely speaks of her family. Though given this conversation, I'm beginning to understand why." Lavinia's smile faltered. "Surely my sister hasn't been filling your head with stories. She does tend to exaggerate. The trauma affected her mind." "I find Lady Corinna's mind exceptionally clear and sharp," Theron said coldly. "If you'll excuse us." He guided Corinna toward the garden. Once outside, she released a shaky breath. "She'll tell people. She'll twist everything. Let her. We'll tell our story louder." He turned to face her. "You're not alone in this anymore." "Why do you care what happens to me?" "Because watching you walk into that ballroom, anxious but refusing to show it, was one of the bravest things I've ever seen." He stepped closer. "I'm not asking for anything. I just want you to know that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'm here." Her heart stuttered. "Theron, I'm not asking for anything. Not yet." She didn't know how to respond. No one had ever thought she was worth waiting for. The weeks following the ball passed in a whirlwind. Corinna's debut was judged a success. The whispers were curious rather than cruel, and the Duke's obvious interest had elevated her status considerably. "You realize people are starting to believe this?" Lady Honoria observed one morning. They were 6 weeks into Corinna's residence now, and everything had changed. "Not just the sponsorship. Whatever is developing between you and Theron." "I don't know what's developing." "Don't you?" Corinna hesitated. They still had evening conversations in the library, but now there were also afternoon walks, morning rides, shared glances across crowded ballrooms. And there were moments, touches that lingered, silences that said more than words. "I want everything with him," Corinna admitted finally, "and that frightens me. That's not something to fear, that's something to reach for. What if he doesn't feel the same?" "He does. I've known my grandson his entire life, and I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you." That evening, Theron found her in the library. "You've been quiet today. Is everything all right?" "Just thinking. About the season ending. Where I'll go." "Marry me." The words stopped her mid-breath. "What?" "Marry me. Then you won't be a guest. You'll be family." He leaned forward. "I'm proposing because I'm in love with you, and I can't imagine my life without you in it. We've known each other 6 weeks. 6 weeks of more genuine conversation than I've had in 6 years. You're brilliant, kind, resilient. You challenge me to be better. You make me want to be the kind of man who deserves you. You already are that man. Then say yes." "I can't," the words tore out. "I want to. But I've spent my entire life being told I'm worthless. That voice doesn't disappear overnight. Until I can silence it myself, I can't enter a marriage carrying that weight." Theron was quiet. Then he kissed her palm. "Then I'll wait, however long it takes." The letter arrived 3 days later. Corinna recognized her stepmother's handwriting immediately. Dear Corinna, your recent activities have come to my attention. Return to Ashworth Hall immediately, and I will provide you with a cottage and small income. In exchange, you will end your association with the Thornhurst family. If you refuse, I will reveal letters suggesting you may not be Lord Ashworth's legitimate daughter at all. The scandal would be devastating for everyone. Consider carefully. You have until the end of the week. Lady Rosamond Ashworth. Corinna's hands shook. Illegitimate. Her stepmother was threatening to declare her illegitimate. It would destroy everything. The trust Lady Honoria had established, the life she was building, any hope of a future with Theron. A duke could never marry a bastard, no matter how he felt. Instead of telling Theron, she made a terrible decision. She would confront her stepmother directly. Learn the truth. That night, she slipped out of Thornhurst House alone. Lady Rosamond was waiting in her sitting room, smiling. I knew you'd come. You were always predictable. She set aside her book. The letters don't actually exist. Your mother was boringly faithful. But by the time anyone established that, the rumor would already be everywhere. You were going to forge evidence? I was going to suggest evidence existed. Lady Rosamond moved closer. But that won't be necessary now. You've returned. I haven't made any decision. Of course you have. Lady Rosamond rang the bell. 2 footmen appeared. Escort Lady Corinna to her old room, and lock the door. Corinna fought, but the footmen were large. Within minutes, she was thrust into the small room that had been her prison for 12 years. The lock clicked into place. Corinna sat in darkness, her mind racing. Lady Rosamond would send word in the morning claiming Corinna had suffered a breakdown. Without Corinna there to contradict her, the story would take hold. Theron would believe she'd abandoned him. She moved to the window, old, warped. If she could pry it open. She worked at the frame for hours, her fingers aching, her nails breaking against the stubborn wood. Finally, something gave. The drop to the garden was perhaps 15 feet. She didn't hesitate. She swung her legs over the sill and let go. The landing was brutal. Pain shot through her ankle, sprained, not broken. She could work with that. She started walking. 3 miles to Mayfair. Every step sent pain lancing through her ankle, but she kept moving. She thought about Theron, his patience, his steadiness. She thought about everything she'd almost thrown away. She'd been so afraid of being hurt that she'd caused pain instead. No more. Dawn was breaking when she reached Thornhurst House. She hammered on the door. Phipps opened it, his expression shifting to shock. Lady Corinna, I need to see Theron, please. The Duke has been searching for you all night. He's engaged Bow Street runners. She pushed past him toward the study. Theron stood by the fireplace, looking as though he hadn't slept. When he saw her, his expression cycled through relief, anger, and anguish. Where the hell have you been? I'm sorry. I received a threatening letter from my stepmother. Instead of telling you, I went to confront her alone. She trapped me. I had to climb out a window to escape. She pulled out the crumpled letter. She threatened to spread rumors that I'm illegitimate. She admitted later the letters don't exist, but the damage would have been done. Theron read the letter, his jaw tightening. She threatened you, tried to blackmail you, and you went to face her alone? I thought I could handle it without dragging you into my family's poison. Her voice cracked. I was wrong. I broke my promise. Yes, you did. You had me out of my mind with worry. His voice was hard. Why didn't you trust me? Because I've spent my entire life being told I'm a burden. Some part of me believed that if you knew how much trouble I came with, you'd decide I wasn't worth it. That's stupid. I know. Fear makes you stupid. She reached for his hands. But I'm done being afraid. I climbed out a window and walked 3 miles on a sprained ankle because I finally understand. that running away hurts more than staying. Theron stared at her. Then he wrapped his arms around her. You brave, stubborn woman. Don't ever do that again. I won't. I promise. No more secrets. Good. He pulled back to meet her eyes. I love you. I want to marry you. And I don't care what your stepmother threatens. We'll face it together. Together. The word felt like revelation. I've never had that before. You have it now. He touched her face. For as long as you want me. Forever, then. Is that a yes? To my proposal? Yes. Corinna laughed through tears. Because I love you, and I can't imagine my life without you. He kissed her with all the desperate intensity of a man who had feared he'd lost everything. Lady Honoria coughed pointedly from the doorway. Well, I hate to interrupt. Lady Corinna's ankle appears quite swollen. The physician pronounced her ankle badly sprained. Rest for a week. Meanwhile, Theron and his solicitors dealt with Lady Rosamond. The investigation revealed she had been selling Corinna's inheritance, items from her mother's dowry, for years. The very assets that should have provided Corinna's security had been quietly liquidated to fund Lady Rosamond's lifestyle. The settlement was straightforward: repayment of stolen assets, a signed confession that Corinna was legitimate, and permanent exile from London society. She's not happy, Lady Honoria reported with satisfaction, but she has no choice. Lord Ashworth, confronted with the evidence, had broken down completely. He signed a statement confirming Corinna's legitimacy and asked Theron to tell her he was sorry. It doesn't fix anything, Corinna said when she heard. No, but it might prevent future damage. Theron touched her cheek. You don't have to forgive him. I don't know what I feel yet. You don't have to know today. We have time. The engagement was announced formally, appearing in all the society papers. The story was irresistible. The scarred heroine, the devoted duke, the wicked stepmother. By month's end, Corinna was the most talked about woman in England. The wedding took place on a brilliant autumn morning. St. George's Church was filled with guests. Corinna wore ivory silk that left her scarring partially visible, a deliberate choice that no longer felt like defiance, but simply like truth. She walked down the aisle on no one's arm. She would give herself to Theron, not be given by anyone. He waited at the altar, looking slightly anxious in a way that made her love him more. You came, he murmured as she reached him. Did you doubt I would? Never. When she spoke her vows, to have and to hold, from this day forward, they felt entirely new, a commitment to the future she'd learned to believe in. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Theron kissed her, and Corinna Vane stepped into her new life. The wedding breakfast was joyous until a commotion near the entrance caught her attention. Lady Rosamond stood in the doorway, pale with fury. I demand to speak with my stepdaughter. This farce cannot continue. Guests parted as Corinna and Theron approached. Lady Rosamond, Theron said coldly, you were barred from London society. Protecting my family's honor. Her eyes fixed on Corinna with hatred. You think you've won? The Duke will tire of you. They always do. She'll have me, Theron said. A husband who adores her. A family who values her. And you will have nothing but the bitter knowledge that your cruelty failed. He nodded to the footmen. Remove her. This isn't over, Lady Rosamond hissed. Yes, it is. Corinna's voice was gentle now. It's been over for a long time. You just couldn't see it. She watched her stepmother disappear from her life forever, and she felt only peace. Are you all right? Theron asked softly. I am. She took his hands. She has no power over me anymore. She's just a bitter woman who made terrible choices. I don't need revenge. I just need her to be gone. She is. She will be. He kissed her hands. Now, I believe we were in the middle of a celebration. He led her back to the center of the room. The orchestra struck up a waltz, and Corinna let herself be swept into his arms once more. This time, there was no fear, no self-consciousness. There was only the music and the movement, and the man she loved holding her close. "Happy?" Theron murmured. "Completely. Good. That's all I've ever wanted for you." 5 years later, the nursery at Thornhurst Manor was in cheerful chaos. 4-year-old Edmund had convinced his 2-year-old sister Honoria, named for her formidable great-grandmother, that building blocks were meant to be thrown. Edmund Marcus Vane, if you throw one more block, there will be consequences. Edmund froze mid-throw, calculating whether consequences were worth it. "Put it down." The block lowered, reluctantly. "Papa says we're spirited," Edmund informed her. "Papa is an optimist." Theron appeared in the doorway, scooping Edmund into his arms. "Have you been causing trouble?" He says he was throwing blocks near his sister's head, not at it. "Shows good aim." Theron grinned. "I'm encouraging spatial reasoning. You're encouraging chaos. Those two." He set Edmund down and crossed to kiss her. "How was your morning?" "Productive. I finished the next chapter of the manuscript." Corinna had published 3 books now, all under her own name, all well received in scientific circles. The trust Lady Honoria had established years ago still provided her independence, a security she would always treasure. But she'd built something of her own now. A voice, a reputation, a contribution to the world beyond drawing rooms and ballrooms. "Brilliant as always," Theron pulled her close. "A letter came from your father." Her relationship with Lord Ashworth had slowly, painfully rebuilt over the years, not to what it had been before. The trust had been shattered, but to something new that acknowledged the past while allowing for a different future. He visited his grandchildren quarterly, always slightly awkward, always painfully grateful to be allowed into their lives. "What about Lavinia?" "Still in Bath, still pretending she never had a sister." Theron's tone was matter-of-fact, which is probably for the best. Corinna felt no loss. Her sister had made her choices. Some relationships weren't meant to be salvaged, but she had other family now. Theron and the children. Lady Honoria, still sharp at 75, delighting in her namesake granddaughter. The friends she'd made, real friends who valued her for herself. "What are you thinking?" Theron asked. "That I'm happy. That I never imagined I could have this life, and now I can't imagine any other." "You deserve this life. You always did." "I know that now. It took a while, but I know it." She leaned into him, watching their children play. "Do you remember what you said to me once? That you'd wait for me, however long it took?" "I remember. I'm glad you waited. I'm glad you came back." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "Walking through the night on a sprained ankle. Most romantic thing anyone's ever done. My heart was pounding the entire way. And you came anyway. That's what made it romantic." In the garden below, Lady Honoria was taking her morning walk. She looked up, perhaps sensing their gaze, and raised one elegant hand in greeting. The woman who had seen something worthy in a servant's corridor. The woman who had changed everything. Corinna waved back. Then she turned to rescue the picture book from little Honoria's grasp, mediate Edmund's increasingly elaborate games, and live the life that had once seemed impossible. The life she'd fought for, the life she'd earned, the life she would cherish, every ordinary, extraordinary day of it, until forever and beyond. Thank you for staying until the very end of this remarkable journey. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that it's never too late to step out of the shadows, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Another soul-stirring story awaits. Click, listen, and let yourself be swept away once more. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you for being here.